That is the Coral, and in the morning, excitingly, Beth Espy.
Yes.
Bill Ryder-Jones, off of the Coral, is on the Isle of Man, and he is playing this evening for his Yawny Yawn piano tour. He's going to be the basement in Douglas. That's a bit bonkers, isn't it?
I hope he's listening. Best of luck, break a leg and all that tonight, Bill.
I know, exciting times. But we are live at Milntown this afternoon. We've taken Tanya in our usual allotment slot up to the north of the island. Charles has taken us on an adventure, Beth, as promised.
Well, yes, we are in somewhere completely different. But you know, outside, it is so warm and sunny. We actually needed our sunglasses.
We did, I know.
A genuine need for them.
Yeah, we did have a genuine need for them. But Charles, just tell us where we are now.
We are in the bathhouse, which is a little brick building, and we're not sure why it's called the bathhouse. There may have been a great bath in here at one time. It could go back to the 1830s when Deemster Christian did the house. It's very unlikely His Honour came out here in his dressing gown for a bath in the morning. So it could have been for the servants. We're not really sure. Sadly, there's no bath in it now.
Well, I certainly wouldn't be tempted. I can't be honest, even though it's lovely in here today. I'm just wondering, how much evidence do you have of what it was like back in the 1800s? You know, do you still find things in the house?
We don't, but we do have evidence of the house that was here before, which probably dates back to the early 1500s. We did an archaeological dig some years ago and found the footings of that house. And we have a picture of Milntown, or a drawing of it, in 1750, before it was made into Gothic. So that's still ongoing research.
So when people come and do a tour of the gardens, they can come into the bathhouse, and there's a video. What's that about?
Yeah, well, that is a little orientation video I've done. You can see the gardeners there, just to give you a little bit of history and point you on your wander around the garden.
And speaking of wandering around the gardens, in order to get here, we did come a beautiful way, just sort of wandering through all the plants there. And Tanya and Adam were walking together. It is wonderful listening to the two of you chatting about the different plants and everything in this garden. What's really taken your eye, Tanya?
Well, we were talking about what an amazing kind of microclimate we have here on the Isle of Man in general, but especially here at Milntown and in Ramsey in the Northern Plain, that there are plants here that would be native to places like Madeira, and they survive over the winter. It's just incredible. So we have a lot of people do actually complain about the weather here. It's wet, it's cold, blah, blah, blah. It's incredible for gardening. It really, really is. And just seeing the plants that are growing here proves that.
And Adam, Charles mentioned before the fact you have a 50-year plan, which is kind of crackers thinking about that, but it makes sense because, you know, it takes that long, doesn't it, for things to develop. Are you able to give us any hints and tips as to what that might be?
Well, it's just planning for the future, really. Trees obviously encompass a large part of that. And, you know, when you think of somebody like Capability Brown, who, you know, looked into the future and planned what the landscape would be, we're trying to just take a small element of that and, you know, make sure that there's woodlands and there's landscape and gardens there for future generations, effectively.
And obviously, Adam, you are the head gardener. How many are in your team?
So there's 4 of us in the team. And we don't just develop the gardens, we maintain the house, we look after the facilities, we help out with events. So it's all encompassing, and but the gardens obviously is the predominant factor of our roles. And
you know, it's lovely so far. We've seen some beautiful butterflies. We also saw a pheasant,
which is
on the wall behind us. Is some information about some of the more common birds you might see in the Milntown gardens. I mean, that's an incredible variety.
There is, and Charles, I've spotted there are some boards with the birds on around the gardens, aren't there?
Well, that's part of our treasure hunt, but in this room there's a big board there about the bathhouse itself and the gardens and the Milntown camps and the mill and everything. But this board is, as you see, some of the more common birds you can see in Milntown. I got a local artist, Chrissy Moss, who is from Castletown.
Friend of the show.
Well, indeed. I'd seen some of the wonderful work she'd done and commissioned all these birds, and they are absolutely exquisite watercolours that we have arranged on the board here with a little bit about each bird, just to, you know, help identification as you go around. There'll be one on butterflies coming up shortly.
That you might spot around the Milntown estate. We mentioned that Scarefest will be coming up around Hoptune time. Are there ever any spooky happenings in the gardens, Charles?
They're mostly associated with the house, and there have been some very spooky ones recently.
Really? Do you want to tell us?
Well,
Do I want to know?
Just strange noises. Adam had an incident recently where he came back to the house and found that all the lights had been switched on, even though the house was locked and alarmed. And he'll probably tell you about that.
See, Adam, I have to say, Adam scared me. When I went nip to the loo, Adam came round a corner and I jumped out of my skin. But you said, Adam, don't worry, I've not seen anything in the 8 years I've been here. But that's
no,
not...
I've not seen anything, but I've heard a few different bits and pieces. You know, if you're working here late in the evening, you can hear... Well, I always put it into my head that it's the pipes or it's, you know, an old house, you know, creaking and so on. Ignorance is better than to think of the reality, I suppose. But yeah, no, we regularly hear different bits and pieces.
Are you a bit of a cynic, though, and even don't want to believe?
I think I just make sure I tell myself that there's nothing there. So, because I have to come and lock the place up because I live on site. So, if an alarm goes off at 3 o'clock in the morning, then I'd rather think that there's nothing there than there is.
Fantastic.
I must say, though, he did say to me a while back, he'd been working till 9 o'clock, and he said to me the next morning, he said, "My God, that house is noisy at night, isn't it, with all those footsteps running up and down the stairs." I'd have left, but you just carried on.
Well, you know, there's work to do, Charles, as you know, so, you know, we've got to get on with it.
Oh, my goodness. Charles, have you ever seen anything for yourself?
I have, yes. It's something you see out of the corner of your eye, and then you think afterwards, actually, that couldn't have been somebody walking past there. It happened to all the 4 trustees sitting in the library one day. Somebody walked past the windows, and when I went to open the door, 4 or 5 seconds later, there was nobody there, and I called them all out, and we ran out, and the place was empty. So it's these sort of things that you can't really explain.
Okay, let's move on quickly.
Yeah, take it back to the land of the living,
Okay,
I think, and
okay.
living plants and what's in this garden. We've got a little bit of signals to go outside, so Tanya, just come outside with this.
Sunglasses ready.
Because we are coming to the end of the show, so we want to be kind of amongst the plants. Tanya, what are you going to be looking at the allotments then over the next few weeks?
I will be cleaning up after 2 weeks being away, getting things in order. I need to make a purchase of manure to top up my no-dig beds, and there's lots and lots of just cleanup things to be doing right now as well. So that'll be keeping me busy plenty.
It's a bit of a nervous time for gardeners coming up, I'm guessing, with the changing weather.
No, I would say that autumn and going into early winter is great because we're starting to settle down. It's been quite busy over the summer. We can start to think about things that we want to grow next year and then get on to some projects over the winter. So putting in like hardscaping things and raised beds and other types of things that you might not have time for during the growing season.
Would you mind telling us about your pea gravel garden path?
Yes! So it was my birthday recently. And so as a birthday gift to myself, I actually hired someone to put in pea gravel pathways in the home garden, so around my raised beds and the walk up to the greenhouse. And I've been looking at the pebble pathways here in the garden, and I would love to get some tips from Adam as to how to make sure to keep them clear of weeds and to keep them looking as best as possible.
Well, we run to organic principles, so the best way for us is just to hand weed them out. But, you know, if you don't mind using other means, you can use sprays. But even then, I would suggest using, you know, vinegar or something along those lines rather than using pesticides. But you can't beat the conventional route of just, you know, on your knees and get all the weeds out as you go. But it's a cost-effective, easy way to get a path surface, I suppose.
I shall be down on my hands and knees plucking all of those weed seedlings starting in spring. But until spring, they're going to be pristine.
It always sounds like such a lovely thing, doesn't it? Trying to keep everything organic and do things by hand. But it is difficult, isn't it?
It is. It is a conscious choice to be organic. It is very easy to garden using chemicals and fertilizers and herbicides. And while, you know, there are some occasions where maybe you might have to use one of those, gardening organically just has so many more benefits. So you know that your food is going to be clean, that the beneficial insects coming into the garden aren't going to be poisoned. And it is satisfying, all of that hard work, as Adam will attest, I'm sure, in just keeping things as natural as possible.
No, it certainly is. I mean, education is key, really, and that's what we're trying to do with the public is to show that you can maintain a garden and you can develop it and look after it by organic means. Yes, it is labour intensive, but the outcome is that you've got a thriving you've got a thriving population of birds, butterflies, bees, and that's what it's all about, especially with today's current sort of climate. It's essential that we do our part.
And if anyone's listening and they haven't been yet to the Milntown Garden, what are the things that you really shouldn't miss when you have a quick tour around here?
Well, that all depends on the time of year you come, I suppose. If you were to come in just after Christmas, then you'd be hit with all the snowdrops and the bulbs. In the spring, there's plenty to see with the magnolias, the rhododendrons, the azaleas. Our herbaceous borders are brimming in the summer, and then we've got the autumnal colour. So, yeah, whatever time of year you want to come. And we also run the children's events throughout the summer holidays, any holidays. So, there's plenty to do. And, come and see it, as I said earlier.
It's been fascinating chatting with Adam Quayle, head gardener there of Milntown, and we're hoping to be able to persuade him to stay a little bit longer after the show so we can do a little extra bit of video with him somewhere else in the gardens we've not been able to get to. Charles God, what's your favourite part of Milntown Gardens?
It's the bit he's developing, the jungle walk, which has got all the wonderful tree ferns and a banana tree and all that sort of thing.
Don't pull that one. We fell for that last
You did.
time.
No, you fell for it, not me. Love.
I fell for it last time.
No, this is a spectacular part. It's like a microclimate again. It's just like being in a jungle. It's great.
And if we just talk about the house again, I know you've been given a lot of things, and you accept things from the sort of 1820s to 40s period?
Yes, we're trying to get stuff from that